All right. Well, maybe I'll luck out here. My YouTube just crashed there for a second. So maybe I didn't get all of this recorded because CBS might come sue me and try to prevent me from telling you the truth, telling you about everything that's going on. And now I really want to do that. And we'll start out in some college somewhere, and I don't even know who's doing the talking, but it doesn't matter because his words are right on. This is a Truth Will Out production. It's up on my website. It's important. You need to share this show. You need to let people come on know this is the New World Order, communism by the back door.
Move on to the next question. Go ahead.
Hi. Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
Why is
It's not the greatest country in the world, Professor. That's my answer.
You're saying...
Yes. You, sorority girl, just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day, there's some things you should know. And one of them is, there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of whom are allies. Now, none of this is the fault of a 20-year-old college student, but you nonetheless are, without a doubt, a member of the worst generation ever. So when you ask what makes us the greatest country in the world, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Yosemite?
Now, talking about the decline of America here. Within the city of London, there is a 1-mile square area that is referred to as the city. This is the headquarters of the Rothschilds, the Jewish dynasty, the Jewish family dynasty, and their Jewish cabal, a group that owns the money supply through the central banks of almost every nation on earth. In 1913, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson was instrumental in helping pass an act through Congress which handed over the financial control which handed over the financial control of the country into the hands of private bankers working for the Rothschilds and the British elite. The Federal Reserve. Woodrow Wilson. Wilson would later write, "The growth of the nation, therefore, and all our activities are in the hands of a few men who, even if their actions be honest and intended for the public interest, are necessarily concentrated upon the great undertakings in which their own money is involved, and who necessarily, by very reason of their own limitations, chill and check and destroy genuine economic freedom." Quoting Woodrow Wilson here. Now, this person, Aaron Russo, who died in 2007. He was a friend of mine. I attended his meetings. I put him on the cover of the Free American magazine when he was running for governor of Nevada. And, of course, the people that call me anti-Semitic don't tell you that. He was a film producer, political activist, and a good man, and he was Jewish.
And the goals of the banking industry, not just the Federal Reserve System, but the private banks in Germany and England, all over Italy, all over the world, they all work together. They're all central banks, and they're all part of the Communist Manifesto. You know, central banking is one of the major planks of the Communist Manifesto. We talk about America being a capitalistic country, but yet at the same time we have a central bank that plans everything for us, right? And the graduated income tax is another plank of the Communist Manifesto, right? So right there you have two major planks of the Communist Manifesto that have been brought in because of the Federal Reserve System, okay? So the ultimate goal that these people have in mind is the goal to create a one-world government. Now, they've taken over our government, both Republicans and Democrats. There's no difference anymore between the two parties. They control both parties. Doesn't matter to them which one wins.
Two wings of the same bird. I've told you that over and over again for 20 years, folks. All the information I've given you over that 20 years, you may be here now, it just sounds like an echo to me.
Who's ever running for president will be someone they anoint, okay? Whether it's Hillary Clinton or John McCain running for president next year, they're going to be people that are going to do what they want them to do. And the fact of the matter happens to be that you can't win an election unless you have enough money to win. They make sure who gets the money. It was necessary for them to take over America, take away our gun rights of freedom to bear arms, and create a country where we become slaves. Because once they take over America, the rest of the world becomes a lot easier for them.
This voice is Aaron Russo. During the first part of the 20th century, a series of victories over the sovereignty of the United States had already been won. The Rothschild, Warburg, Rockefeller banking cartel had accomplished important stepping stones for their new world order. The Federal Reserve System in 1913, the League of Nations 1920, the Royal Institute of International Affairs, and the Council on Foreign Relations 1920 to 1921, and the stock market crash of 1929. In 1933, Adolf Hitler was elected as Chancellor of a poverty-stricken Germany. After stripping power from the Jewish bankers, in only 3 years, Germany became the economic powerhouse of Europe when the rest of the world was in a recession. Folks, we could do that too. We could do that too. If you had someone like me that's not afraid of his own goddamn shadow to get in here and organize, and we had a few people backing us, a few people donating as Hitler did, we could turn this around. We could take this power back from the lawyers. We could take it back from the banks. And we could support the American people. That is what they are scared to death of. That we could turn America around the way Hitler did Germany. And Hitler arrested Baron Louis de Rothschild, not wanting other countries to try and emulate Germany's success. Powerful and influential Jews from around the world were already planning the removal of Hitler. Although several early assassination attempts failed, the Jewish-led military powers of Western capitalism and Soviet communism would eventually combine to totally wipe out National Socialist Germany. I told you we fought on the wrong side. Roosevelt was friends with Uncle Joe, who killed 60, 70, 100 million white Christian Russians. They want to do that to us. Alexander Solzhenitsyn told you what this. None of these people were German. None of these politicians you got in there are Americans. They are socialists, they are communists, they are something other than they are New World Order types. Look at your presidential elections. They're selected by the Council on Foreign Relations. But let's go on. You in America have been told we fought a good war. We didn't. Hitler escapes explosion of beer cellar. I mean, all of these assassination attempts, they were successful with Kennedy, and we'll hear from Kennedy in a few moments. Here's what I've told you about. Judea declares war on Germany. Jews of all the world unite in action. So don't you try to tell me, don't you dare try to tell me, well, we just got to reach out to the good Jews. All Jews aren't bad. All Jews aren't bad. Well, the grandma over there might not be, sitting in Alabama someplace, but the rest of them supported this boycott of German goods, and this is all in the Daily Express, Friday, March 4th, 1935. With Germany's defeat, the last military opposition had fallen, and Western Europe was placed back in the banker's iron grip, where it has remained ever since. U.S. General George Patton tried to warn of the threat of communism before his untimely death in Berlin in 1945, but infiltration of the U.S. had already begun. November 1933, 16th of November, 1933.
Soviet Union. Its purpose, its open stated goal, its strategy was to overthrow the rest of the world and impose the teachings of Marx, and then Leninism, and then we get to Stalin. Now, 4 American presidents, beginning in 1917, refused to recognize this revolutionary government, knowing full well that you could not have, quote, normal, or even normal without quotes, relations with a government calculating towards your own destruction. This was obviously, you could not have agreements, they would be broken, you could not have any kind of deals or alliances. And so this government was shunned by the United States until 1933. And that was the year in November when Franklin Roosevelt, then in his very first term, recognized the Soviet Union. In order to perpetuate this alliance, to continue relations with the Soviet Union, which became really an obsession of American governments from that day forward, the American government had to learn to lie to the
6 million perish in Soviet famine. Peasants' crops seized, they and their animals starve. That was in the Ukraine, I believe, folks, but it probably happened in Russia too.
People and tell us lies about communism, tell us lies about Stalin, tell us lies about the Soviet Union. And I think in some way...
And here's Roosevelt's Communist Manifesto. That was by Emanuel Josephson. The original communist emblem, insignia of the Order of the Illuminati, and Roosevelt's Communist Manifesto. It's on your dollar bills today. But hey, go back to sleep. Don't worry about it. Everything will come out okay if we just let the communists have their way.
These ills that we see in our culture today, I think, have their roots in this relationship.
Novus Ordo Seclorum.
That Roosevelt himself believed in.
Amerirus. Joining Russia and America into one company by Robert Fuller, page 30 here. Amerirus, a booklet put out here.
And I suppose that the money people you're talking about came out of that same mindset and were promoting that same mindset and were indeed the influence on Roosevelt in making this decision. Given the record of the Bolshevik government coming in terms of body count, in pre-revolutionary times, the Tsarist government executed about 17 political prisoners a year. Compare this to the Spanish Inquisition, which at its height destroyed 10 people a month. But in those early revolutionary years, the new Bolshevik secret police executed without trial more than 1,000 people per month. Later in the 1930s, thousands of people per month. And yet the United States rushed into alliance, rushed to recognize the Soviet government under Roosevelt during World War II, rushed into this alliance. And so you go again to these advisors, many of whom we later learned, confirmed after archives opened on the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, we later learned many of these senior officials in the United States government were working for Stalin. I don't feel the same way about that war anymore, and I'm convinced that if my father were still living, that he would also greatly question what he had actually participated in. Because when you look at that post-war map, what happened? There is devastated Germany, and in that vacuum, there is a new, thriving, powerful, U.S.-supplied Soviet empire in its place.
Russia's lifesaver, the Lend-Lease to Europe. And now we got Department of Homeland Security.
I think most Americans would tell you they're still living in a capitalist free country with all manner of liberty. The brainwashing, the conditioning that has been so successful and has demoralized us.
We deceive, you believe.
Bringing us to this point of a certain kind of tyranny. It does not have, at this point, does not have the gulag. It does not have people knocking at the door with guns yet. It does, however, make examples of truth tellers. It makes examples of people who cross.
The further a society drifts from truth, the more it will hate those who speak it. That was George Orwell's words. Another forerunner, probably a member or insider of the New World Order, who wrote a novel about it. And by the way, I've got up on my website some novels that I wrote about 5-6 years ago, maybe a little more. I added segments in between chapters predicting what was going to be happening. And it's happening right now. I wrote that and put it in before you had FEMA camps. I'm asking you to go to my website, go to shop.freeamerican.com and order some of my books. Read them. If you were a Travis McGee fan, you'll love The Deadly Flashes of Silver and One Bloody Alabaster Eye.
The line, and this serves to tyrannize us, and we are experiencing this, and yet you ask most people, they'll say we won the Cold War. Well, I say, look, 100 million dead after the communist century, and Republicans who have a majority in Congress cannot muster the votes to repeal and defund socialized medicine. Who won the Cold War?
Moscow, 1991, last day of the Soviet Union. Communism.
The communist rules for revolution read like this. Corrupt the young. Get them away from religion.
There is no God.
Get them interested in sex. Make them superficial and destroy their ruggedness. Always preach true democracy, but seize power as fast and as ruthlessly as possible. Communist rules for revolution by encouraging government extravagance, destroy its credit, produce fear of inflation with rising prices and general discontent, promote abortion, homosexuality, lesbianism, witchcraft, cause the restriction of all firearms on some pretext with a view of confiscating them and leaving the population helpless.
Yeah, turn in your guns. The government will protect you. Right.
That is communism.
That is communism.
Let me tell you what communists do. You want to know when you've got a communist? This was the plans passed from Joseph Stalin to various communist district organizers in helping America self-destruct. Religion, discredit all Christian creeds. What do we got today? We've got occult cartoons, occult in the bookstores, and occult movies and occult videos. In the
Royal Navy to allow devil
corrupt
worship.
morality by advocating promiscuity and degenerate perversion. during the early part of...
Whoa, let me go back here just a moment. Royal Navy.
Movies and occult videos.
Royal Navy to allow devil worship.
Corrupt morality by advocating promiscuity and degenerate perversion. During the
bestiality legalized in military.
Under Jane Alexander, American taxpayers financed a 3-foot mound of synthetic excrement, a sculpture of 2 women engaging in oral sex, a film actually showing one man pushing his head into another man's rectum, a photo of a man with a bullwhip in his rectum, a film depicting Jesus Christ as a topless woman. Wake up! This is communism!
Secret society.
Secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
You don't recognize his voice as John F. Kennedy.
That the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweigh the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news,
Agents
dissent,
are ordered to stand down in Dallas. They left him unprotected.
The public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. Its dissenters are silenced. Its dissenters are silenced. Its dissenters are silenced.
And of course, that's what they tried to do with me. They tried to silence me because I was trying to tell you the truth. Organizing the militia was to protect you from something like what happened at Waco. All right, what's going on? Sorry, your boss is. We're going to lose you. Unearth has logged out. All right. Not much happening in the chat room. Okay. Now, I think we will go on and continue with this. I will take calls. You can call in. If I can find this. You can call in at 646-915-8774. Just in the morning when the show's on. My other numbers are on freeamerican.com. You can go to shop.freeamerican.com and get my books, get my videos, get some of the last issues of the Free American. Some of them are still up for free up on my website, but the last few that I put up online are available at shop.freeamerican.com. Again, my call-in number 646-915-8774. And where are we here? That film was called Communism by the Backdoor, Period 1. Now, here's some secret beginnings. The Council on Foreign Relations and the Royal Institute of Foreign Affairs can trace their roots back to a secret organization founded and funded by the British mining magnate Cecil Rhodes. On his death, he left his fortune to maintain his dream of a one-world government after he became fabulously wealthy working for the Rothschilds, exploiting the people of South Africa. Part of the history that you may not be aware of. Cecil Rhodes said he walked between the earth and the sky and said that the English should rule this world and the English should rule this earth.
The Council on Foreign Relations is supposedly just a think tank addressing the issues that face America. But the Council on Foreign Relations is a front for the secret society that Cecil Rhodes created. In 1891, it pursues his goal of creating a world government where there'd be no more wars, there'd be no more hunger, there'd be no poverty. Everything would be wonderful and people would live happily ever after. That was basically the dream that Cecil Rhodes had.
We got a picture here of the Royal Institute of International
Affairs. It works closely with the monarchy. Parliament in England is simply a front. They don't make the decisions. However, the Council on Foreign Relations is no longer the primary organization. Basically, the existence of this organization was concealed. Very few people knew about it. David Rockefeller controls trillions of dollars. For 15 years, pursuing this globalist program, decided they needed another organization, the Trilateral Commission. And the Trilateral Commission was not only American, it was international. There's a small elite group made up of bankers and financiers and educators who believe in this concept of world government. England and America always work together and put into positions of power dictators who will go along with this idea of world government. And we've recently seen them topple the government of Egypt, of Tunisia, of Libya. They've done it in Iraq, they've done it in Afghanistan. They create war after war after war because they want to bring about world peace. From 1977 to 2004, every president of the United States and or vice president of the United States, sometimes both, has been a member of the Trilateral Commission. That was from 1977 to 2008. That would be Jimmy Carter, his vice president, Ronald Reagan's vice president, George Herbert Walker Bush, member of the Trilateral Commission, Bill Clinton and Al Gore. Dick Cheney was a member of the Trilateral Commission. George W. Bush was not a member. Barack Obama is not a member of the Trilateral Commission. Barack Obama picked 11 of them to actually surround him. Hillary Clinton is not a member of the Trilateral Commission, but her husband was.
We get a lot of advice from the council, so this will mean I won't have this far to go to be told what we should be doing. And
And she wants to be your president?
The Trilateral Commission controls the American government. Now, the American people don't know that. Certainly when Hillary Clinton announced that she was going to resign and Barack Obama suggested we put in Susan Rice as the Secretary of State, Susan Rice came to the membership rolls of the Trilateral Commission, discredited because of some remarks she made. So they picked another person for the Secretary of State in the United States. His name is John Kerry, and you'd never guess where he came from. Senator John Kerry, member of the Trilateral Commission. The elite rule America, they rule England, they rule the world today. You can go to their website at trilateral.org, and where, of course, you can see their logo. It's made up of a circle with 3 curved arrows. If you look closely, you'll see there's 6s. You'll see the 666 joined together in the center by an upside-down broken cross. This is an occult organization. Cecil Rhodes was involved in the occult. The people who joined with him in this pursuit of a world government were involved in the occult. And it is these occult organizations, both the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission, which are the major force behind this move towards world government. And if you're coming at this from a Christian point of view, you realize, of course, it's been prophesied for thousands of years. We would establish a world government. We would reconstitute the government that Nimrod tried to produce about 200 years after the Great Flood. And of course, Nimrod wanted to build the Tower of Babylon to reach the heavens. He wanted to replace God with a one world government under his control, and of course that failed. This movement continues today. There were secret societies at the time of Nimrod. There are secret societies today. There really is a mystical world out there. There's a supernatural world. There really are supernatural forces.
One world Luciferian religion, or satanic. I think they use Lucifer because he could be portrayed as a good guy. The Lucis Trust, custodian of the Alice Bailey occult writings, was incorporated originally as the Lucifer Publishing Company. In 1924, they changed their name to the somewhat less obvious Lucis Trust. The organization has close ties with the United Nations and has freely lobbied for the creation of a new world order.
Sarah McKechnie is taking her professional and spiritual journey through life with her husband, Dale McKechnie, who is vice president of the Lucis Trust.
They probably thought Lucifer, light bearer, was a good name for their fledgling publishing company when they started to publish the books that Alice Bailey was writing, the books they saw as bringing light to humanity. But within 2 or 3 years, they decided to change the name of the company to Lucis Publishing Company. Lucis being from the same Latin term meaning of light, Trust of Light, Publishing Company of Light, and that's the name we've had since about 1925. Now, the reference to Lucifer comes from Blavatsky's description of Lucifer in the accurate sense of the term, which is of Latin origin. It means literally light bearer. So Lucifer to Blavatsky was one of the great sacrificial beings who descended to earth. That's where we get the idea of the fall of the angels. That was the descent of the solar angels to earth as an act of sacrifice on our behalf.
But is it not so that Lucis Trust, Alice Bailey, was looking for specifically the prophet Maitreya?
The Maitreya is a being, an entity. We're told that when this entity, this avatar, returns, that he will bring humanity a new understanding of the spiritual will. But first, we have to demonstrate that the energy of love love is sufficiently anchored in human consciousness to make us able to bear a greater spiritual will. You can imagine a powerful will without sufficient love would be wrongly used. You can imagine a powerful will without sufficient love would be wrongly used.
I'm sure you can see straight away that this is an androgynous performer. This is part of the agenda in that the fallen are androgynous. But this is Baphomet, and you'll see that Baphomet is androgynous. They've got the female breasts and the male phallic here. This is work by Aleister Crowley. This is Baphomet again with the wings like the phoenix. And also, remember, you saw this at the Olympics. 2012 Olympics, that they had the rise of the phoenix as well.
You threw me down, but I'm gonna fly.
Now they're showing a woman, and I guess this is a performer at the Olympics. She's got a beard. She's got a beard in a dress, long black hair, black eyes, pretty evil looking, and the phoenix is burning in the background.
And now you see that she's gained wings in the background, flame wings. Once I transform, once I'm reborn. Right, now let's have a look at this in a second. This is hell, guys. This is coming from hell.
Coming from hell with the flames in the background.
I do. This night is dedicated to everyone who believes in a future of peace and freedom. You know who you are. We are unity, and we are unstoppable.
Lucis Trust is a non-governmental organization that has an affiliation with the UN. How does your esoteric practice interface with the figures and policies of world government? It's a bit of a reaching question.
The UN isn't a form of government. It's a platform for the governments of the world to come together and try to work out in common ground a solution to problems. A fairly successful resolution might be the way they are approaching the problems in the Middle East. Although, again, not everybody would agree with, say, the stand taken in Libya.
It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common thoughts to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law.
We came, we saw, he died. He didn't have anything to do with your position.
This is Hillary Clinton laughing about the death of Saddam Hussein. Now, behind the New World Order are the Jewish-run governments of the Western Allies, victorious after crushing Germany in World War II. The Masonic Jewish-controlled countries of America, Britain, France have been aided since 1948 by the Zionist Jewish state of Israel. Although the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, the goal of the New World Order remains the same: a one-world government as dictated by the ideology of the Jew Karl Marx, Marxist communism. Capitalism, communism, monarchism, Zionism have all merged under the guise of globalism, with the ultimate aim of one government, communism, one religion, Luciferian, one currency to be decided, bonded by Freemasonry, financed by the Rothschilds and the Rockefeller Institutes, and protected by the Anglo-U.S. French-Israeli military. They force regime change in sovereign states under the guise of protecting the civilian population. Exactly what they're going to do here if you don't stand up and stand beside me. The subtle promotion of this agenda is organized and administered by the Jewish-owned Hollywood, the music industry, the mainstream media. And, of course, that's why I'm demonized, that's why I'm called anti-Semitic, why they try to find something wrong with me every time. You talk about me, bring up Clay Douglas, bring up the Free Americans, see what happens. The ability to control the free-flowing information on the internet has proven more difficult. That's how we're able to do this show right now. Oops, back that up just a second. The ability to control the free-flowing information on the internet has proven more difficult. However, the emergence of internet truth personalities, known as gatekeepers, are used to confuse and spread misinformation. That is Alex Jones. That is mainstream media. But Alex Jones is the patriot who is admitted that he is Jewish, is married and has dual citizenship. He and his wife and children have dual citizenship with Israel. The internet social media sites such as Facebook, YouTube, continually ban pages or channels that expose their agenda. And Wikipedia, the largest and most popular encyclopedia on the internet, is monitored daily and controlled by paid member workers on behalf of Israel. And this is interesting. You can go to Wikipedia and type in Alex Jones and get a history on him. Type in Clay Douglas. You won't get anything. I am banned, and the Free American is banned in libraries, major corporations, and they won't tell you about the Free American, which has been in operation for 20 years. Why don't they want you to hear from me? Why don't they want you to donate to me? Because I talk about Israel. Secret meetings of the New World Order here.
At a 1991 closed-door meeting of fellow internationalists, billionaire and former CFR chairman David Rockefeller praised his media allies, but his confidence that his words would not leave the room was later broken.
We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other publications whose directors have attended our meetings and restricted their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subject to the bright lights of publicity. But the world is now more sophisticated and prepared to march toward a world government.
You think? I don't.
We don't want your world government! Leave Chile right now! Leave Chile, okay? Leave Chile! Your families are all disgusted in the world, you know? You're a traitor to Chile, okay? You're a traitor to Chile, speaking with him and this. Your world government will stay, okay?
And I saw a woman sit up on a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 horns and 7 heads and 10 horns, Book of Revelations. And the design of the Great Seal of the Trilateral Commission. That's right. Describes it perfectly. To be continued. Okay, we will do this. This is an important show, folks. As I've told you before, this is an important show. Communism by the back door. We're bringing it to the forefront. We're bringing it out in the open. All of this is facts. All of this is checkable. Don't believe anything I say. Check it out for yourself. The New World Order, Communism by the Back Door, part number 3. I believe David Wise
put
this
people, inherently and historically, opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
The evil of Freemasonry.
Now, the main enemy is Freemasonry. Freemasonry claims it tries to make good men better men, and it accepts only men of high moral character, and it's an educational religious society. They seek to improve the community. But what they fail to tell the people is that Masonry has another purpose. It's completely unknown to much of the public and many of the Masons. Manly P. Hall, a 33rd degree Mason, said, quote, "Freemasonry is a fraternity within a fraternity, an outer organization concealing an inner brotherhood of the elect." In the first degree, the initiate is asked the following question: what do you desire? In the first degree, he answers life. In the second degree, he answers more life. In the third degree, he answers further life. But he's led phase by phase through a series of blood oaths. Now, Albert Pike, who's probably the most famous Freemason of all time, he was a Mason who simultaneously occupied 3 different positions. He was the head of Washington, D.C. Masonry, he was the head of American Masonry, and he was the head of World Masonry. Albert Pike wrote the book Morals and Dogma. It was published in 1871. It's been called the most important book of Freemasonry. It's been called the Bible of Freemasonry. Albert Pike says in Morals and Dogma, quote, "The Mason is familiar with the doctrine that the Supreme Being is a center of light." Now, what is this light that the Masons are talking about? Page 321 of Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike. Quote, "Lucifer, the light bearer, Lucifer, the son of the morning, is it he who bears the light? Doubt it not." End quote. And on page 324, he repeats the thought. He says, quote, "A devil, the fallen Lucifer, or light bearer." He identifies Lucifer as being the devil. The New Agers believe the same thing as the Masons. Manly P. Hall wrote the book, The Lost Keys of Freemasonry. He says this, quote, "When the Mason learns the key is the proper application of the dynamo of living power, he has learned the mystery of his craft. The seething energies of Lucifer are in his hands." End quote. So the Masonic writers are telling the public they conceal the worship of Lucifer from the rest of the Masonic Lodge. In the 28th degree, the symbol, this is for the degree Knight of the Serpent, it has a snake biting its tail. And what looks to be a friendly person, but you look in the reflection here, as you can see, if you turn around, it's a demon. And that's important because Albert Pike says, quote, "That which is above is as that which is below," end quote. The House of the Temple in Washington, D.C., which is where Freemasons receive their 33rd degree. You have to be chosen to be a 33rd degree Mason.
Aleister Crowley, Walt Disney, Nelson Mandela, Freemasons.
In a book called The History of Freemasonry, quote, "This star represents good when represented with 1 point upward." And the page reads on, quote, "But when turned with 1 point down, it represents evil." End quote. The pentagram is one of the biggest symbols in Satanism.
Adolf History, Destruction of European Freemasonry. Germany, 1933. Hermann Göring stated, "The National Socialist Germany, there is no place for Freemasonry." The enemies of the state. Immediately upon Hitler's rise to power, the 10 Grand Lodges of Germany were dissolved and its members were imprisoned. The Gestapo confiscated their libraries and seized collections of Masonic objects for public display. Within a few years, Freemasonry would be destroyed across Europe. The Allies, however, were led by the following Freemasons: Roosevelt, Churchill, Stalin, and Truman. last week, German police smashed their way into Berlin's Benign Breath Lodge, arrested the members, and cleared out the premises. And by the way, Benign Breath is who formed, supports, controls the ADL and probably the Southern Poverty Law, also all well-funded organizations they put together and used to demonize me, to try to destroy my companies. I had one of my magazines sold for $500,000, and I still controlled half of it. I walked into the office on Monday, and they were, the CEO was shaking, Clay, I can't go through with it. I can't go through with it. They've contacted every stockholder in my company. They're threatening to impeach me. They told every stockholder what a radical anti-Semite you were. They also try to recall me a Nazi or whatever, racist, Nazi, any name they can come up with, because I tell you the truth. And here's a picture from 1930-some-odd Germany. Got a German anti-Masonic display.
Well, in the French case, they organised a huge exhibition in Paris on the evils of Freemasonry as a conspiracy. Likewise, in Britain, they would have barged into big Masonic lodges and confiscated all the paraphernalia. They might well have made a big exhibition of all this stuff in the Guildhall with all sorts of photographs and information and line charts showing this great Masonic network allegedly running Britain and pointing out how many cabinet ministers or whatever were Masons. And they would have tried to sell that to the population, saying, look here, you idiots, you've been governed for years by 200 sort of leading Freemasons or something.
The Sonderfundungeslist, GB, or Black Book, named 2,820 individual enemies of the Reich, who were to be hunted down and eliminated once Britain had been occupied. All the members of the British government and the civil service were on the list, but the remainder were the cream of Britain's intellectual and literary elite. With these detailed lists, British Freemasonry would have been eradicated, just as it was in the Channel Islands.
It was on the morning of the 27th of January, 1941, that squads of special troops, professional wreckers, arrived here at the Masonic Temple in St. Helier and set about the systematic looting and pillaging of this beautiful building. They stripped out all the main furnishings, and they also stripped out and ransacked the splendid library and museum. And as photographs which are taken at the Liberation show, the damage inflicted was horrendous. It was state vandalism.
The Masons also use a Masonic timetable system. They don't use AD, they use AL. AL is their standard of calendar system. It means Anno Lucis, and that means in the year of light. And it could also be interpreted to mean in the year of Lucifer. And you can also find AL on the cornerstone, at the engraved date of any cornerstone laid by the Masons. The Masons definitely believe in symbology and numerology. They have a fascination with the number 33. Masonic Encyclopedia says that Charleston, South Carolina was selected as the first home of the Council of the 33rd Degree Masonic Lodge. Major events that have happened on the 33rd degree latitude, it's where the first nuclear bomb was tested at Trinity Site, New Mexico. And the monument chosen to commemorate this site was an obelisk, which is a Masonic symbol. The 33rd degree latitude also passes over both Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. These sites were the place where the first two bombs, atomic bombs, were dropped at the end of World War II. Truman was a 32nd degree Mason when he dropped the bombs. In October of 1945, he became a 33rd degree Mason. But the most astonishing incident that has occurred on the 33rd degree latitude of the map is the passage over the city of Dallas, Texas, where on November the 22nd, 1963, JFK was assassinated. The president passed an obelisk that is located right in front of the school book depository on the street where the president was shot.
Lyndon B. Johnson sworn as 36th president. He's also a
Well, what we
Freemason.
know as Freemasonry came most recently from the Order of the Knights Templar movement in the 1300s. Actually came before that, in the year 43 AD, from a group called the Mysterious Force. That's actually where Freemasonry came from. And this following information is from a book called The Origin of Masonry. The Mysterious Force was established in 43 AD, and it started when a counselor to King Herod Agrippa came to him and complained that the followers of Jesus had a mysterious force. So the purpose of this group was to attack the teachings of Jesus, and that they should establish their own mysterious force in order to preserve Judaism. King Herod Agrippa said, quote, "We will use the hammer because it was used to nail Jesus' hands and feet. Every session will be opened by striking the hammer 3 times," end quote. And you notice the judges have the hammer to bring order to the court. King Herod Agrippa said, quote, "We will make degrees. These will be 33, symbolizing the age of the impostor." And on November 43 AD, the first official session was held in the first temple of Jerusalem, which was a basement in the palace of King Herod Agrippa. The meeting of the mysterious force was always held in the temple. That was the name of the temple. And in 1717, modern Freemasonry changed it to the name of lodge. To prove that Masonry is of Jewish origin, here are the following quotes. The Rabbi Isaac Weiss wrote in 1855, quote, "Masonry is a Jewish institution whose history, degrees, assignments, signs, and explanations are of Jewish nature from beginning to end," end quote. Theodor Herzl, the founder of Zionism in 1897 in Switzerland, said, quote, "Masonic lodges are established all over the world to offer us help to achieve our independence. Those pigs and non-Jewish Masons will never understand the final objects of Masonry," end quote.
President Barack Obama concludes his 3-day trip to Israel today, and it began early with a trip to Mount Herzl, where he laid a wreath on the tomb of Theodor Herzl, the Zionist visionary who imagined the state of Israel, but who died 40 years before it came into being.
Those pigs and non-Jewish Masons will never understand the final objects of Masonry, end quote. Also in the Jewish Encyclopedia, there's no criticism of socialism or communism, and there, in fact, they say that they're instrumental in founding and making socialism flourish. In fact, Jewish international bankers financed the Russian Revolution.
Vladimir Lenin.
Now, going back to what all this Freemasonry is rooted in, it's rooted in the Jewish Kabbalah. The Kabbalah is the Hebrew word for received tradition. The Jewish Kabbalah is a medieval Jewish book of occult philosophy and magic based on mystical interpretations of the Old Testament. The Kabbalah is important with magicians, sorcerers, witches, Satanists, as well as Masonic philosophers. And all the things I just mentioned that are rooted, talked about Freemasonry, gets back and is rooted in the Jewish Kabbalah. The book Morals and Dogma has 65 pages dealing with the Kabbalah. Page 741 of Morals and Dogma says this, quote, "Masonry is a search for light. That search leads directly back to the Kabbalah."
Followers' Kabbalah can be recognized by the wearing of a red string on the wrist. It said the string is for protection in their search for light. about the Shriners.
What is your problem?
Just that, sir.
Okay.
I'm a Christian, sir.
I'm pure and virtuous and wholesome and innocent. How can you say anything bad about me?
Sir, you need to be born again.
I am born again.
Now, did you just say that you're Lucifer?
I am Lucifer.
Okay, define Lucifer for me.
Pure, virtuous, wholesome, innocent individual that's out to help people.
Lucifer is?
Yeah.
Say that again. Lucifer is a pure, holy,
virtuous.
Now, is he the Lucifer that God created?
That's the same one.
Oh, man, this is great.
God bless you, brother.
Because that's exactly what the Shriners and Masons teach. This is what a Mason confesses, is that Lucifer is light.
All right. We've got enough time for one more here. This is Communism by the Back Door. The New World Order, Communism by the Back Door. Freemasonry and the music industry.
And we all know this, we're close, and that's one of the reasons why we're so tight as a family, and why everyone in this room that's with us is always going to get money and get rich, because we believe in sharing. First, let's make a toast to Jay-Z and Boogie and life and friendship, and then a toast to Rockefeller. Get the glass around the room. Now look hot. Hey, get the glass around the room. Put the glass back up. Yeah. Rockefeller for life. Rockefeller for life.
Get them away from religion. Promote abortion, homosexuality, lesbianism, witchcraft, and destroy their ruggedness.
Is that what the music industry does to us? Alright, let me see what's going on here. Sorry. Although the story of Robert Johnson is regarded as a legend, the occult within Freemasonry, as admitted by Albert Pike and Manly P. Hall, is very real. Not unlike the degrees of Freemasonry itself, there are levels in the music business only obtainable to those who are willing to promote the New World Order agenda. There has never been a shortage of talented artists and bands willing to sell their souls to the Luciferian industry in exchange for fortune and fame. Matter of fact, this is part of what I've been writing in my Lucifer novels, in which I portrayed, and this is a few years ago, Lucifer as a talent agent. And that's still available as a screenplay that I did for HBO on shop.freeamerican.com.
You can help people. You can save souls.
Jerry Lee Lewis, here shown with record producer Sam Phillips.
How can the devil save souls? What are you talking about? Man, I got the devil in me. If I didn't have, I'd be a Christian.
I'm Christian-minded, but I'm not living it. Now I regret that I don't. I regret that I haven't, but I know I should have.
The enigma of Bob Dylan, the unlikeliest of rock stars. He's regarded as one of the greatest influences on a musical generation, second only to Elvis Presley.
Playing at some party or something, it was like a whole different guy. You hear those stories about the bluesmen that go out to the crossroads and sell their soul to the devil and come back all of a sudden able to do stuff. Robert Johnson, Tommy Johnson, that whole mythology was one of those kind of deals almost. When he left Minneapolis, he was just average. You know, there was 5, 6 other guys doing the same thing. When he came back, he was doing Woody, and he was doing Van Ronk, and he was finger picking. He was playing cross harp. And this is a matter of a couple of months. I mean, this is not like he was gone, you know, a year or anything.
That's when I went to the crossroads and made a big deal. You know, like, you know, one night, and then went back to Minneapolis, and I was like, hey, where's this guy been? You know, he'd been to the crossroads.
Why do you still do it? Why are you still out here?
Well, it goes back to the destiny thing. You know, I made a bargain with it, you know, a long time ago, and I'm holding up my end.
This is Bob Dylan talking.
What was your bargain?
To get where I am now.
Should I ask who you made the bargain with?
with the chief commander
on this earth,
and this earth, and then in a world we can't see.
Aleister Crowley, the Beast, 666.
And this being, through his wife, kind of a channeling type operation, brought forth a book that was called the Book of the Law in 1904. And this book declared that the slain and risen God, i.e. Jesus, had stepped off the throne, and that a new God, the crowned and conquering child, was taking his place. In fact, he was a brilliant genius. He was an accomplished poet, mountaineer, painter, writer. He had so many Masonic degrees that you could fill up 5 pages of a book with them. This guy was probably the most highly honored Mason in the world. And he was also the most dangerous man in the 20th century.
Do what thy wilt shall be the whole of the law. Aleister Crowley.
The intro to Sgt. Pepper's says 20 years ago today. Sgt. Pepper taught the band to play, and it was 20 years ago today that day that Crowley passed away. So 47 was when he died, and I guess the album came out in 67. So, Lennon himself was a known occultist. He would constantly go to occult bookstores in New York City, and had some of his writings, Imagine, and all these other songs and stuff reference a lot of occult subjects. So.
In the early 1970s, ex-Beatle John Lennon moved into New York to live in the exclusive Dakota apartment complex. In 1968, this was where the satanic cult movie Rosemary's Baby was filmed, directed by occultist Roman Polanski. The song Imagine, the album cover of which was influenced by the movie, has since become the anthem of the New World Order. John Lennon outside the building with his murderer, Mark Chapman. Chapman fired 5 bullets into Lennon. Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Michael Jackson, Madonna, Jay-Z, the Beach Boys, Queen, U2, The Doors, David Bowie, Black Sabbath. That's just a few of the endless list of stars who openly admired Crowley, the man who practiced the most perverted acts of depravity and the most dangerous rituals in Satanism. However, he claimed a discovery that would certainly have great appeal to the ruling elite as well as most millionaire rock stars. Black magic is not a myth. It was an essay he published in the London Sunday Dispatch on 2nd of July 1933. In it he wrote about the elixir of life, the power of eternal youth, and how at the age of 40 his first attempt ended with 6 months of violent pain after he carelessly overdosed. 6 years later, at the age of 47, he attempted the elixir of life again and went on to describe how he developed incredible physical strength. I was as powerful an athlete as any man of his 30. This time, however, there were no side effects and his intellectual ability had actually intensified. Crowley had previously, on 4th of April 1904, mastered the conjuring and summoning of a demonic entity. Beyond talking of demon possession.
Nothing like Sasha. But I guess I wouldn't be very entertaining on the stage. So Sasha comes out and she's fearless. You know, she can do things that I cannot do when I'm in rehearsal.
Sasha Fierce is Beyonce's
sing notes,
controller.
Sing strong and do all these things that when I'm just by myself, I can't do. And I remember right before I performed, I raised my hands up, and it was kind of the first time I felt something else come into me.
Roman is a crazy boy who lives in me. I think he was born out of rage. He was conceived in rage, so he bashes everyone. He threatens to beat people, and he's violent.
It must be nice to have, like, an ignorant loudmouth who you can just sort of blame every...
He wants to be blamed. I don't want to blame him. I ask him to leave, but he can't. He's here for a reason. People have brought him out. People conjured him up. Now he won't leave.
Freddie Mercury.
You think you're going to get to heaven? No, I don't want to. You don't want to? No, hell's much better.
One world, one vision. One true religion. Never even heard of Freddie Mercury, but demonic anyway.
Right now we're in downtown Toronto. I'm in Davenport, and as you can see, I'm in front of the
downtown Canada.
That's how old it is. Check this out.
MTV. Masonic
the
television.
whole idea of celebrity and fame has become really convoluted and, you know, kind of bastardized, like whereas fame used to be the byproduct of success, and now it's the ultimate goal. And if your ultimate goal is to be famous, then you're going to do a lot to get there, like sign your name in blood in a contract with the devil. Like you're going to end up on a one-way street and it's going nowhere. Like that's just the truth. I've seen so many people like forsake their moral code and their value systems just for a little bit of fame, and it's not worth it at the end of the day. It's really not worth it.
This is the Temple of Set. The temple is the only international satanic religious institution fully recognized by the United States government.
The annual Babylon Ball here, starring the horrors of Babylon, including celebrity guests who sold out to the New World Order. Mick Jagger here. Madonna. Back to Mick. Miley Cyrus, Madonna, lesbians kissing, remember what the Communist Manifesto, destroy religion. Here we have it in full color. In full color here. Pornography on stage at the Olympics here. You know, it's kind of even turning me off. I'm not going to sit and watch this for the rest of my show. And I may not even put this up on my website. Communism by the Backdoor, number 4 here. But some other things that I want to see. Communism by the Back Door. Let's go over here. Where were we? How about hearing from Judge Napolitano? That seems a little bit more up to date. Why taxation is theft, abortion is murder, and the government is dangerous. And they fired...
I'll say this plainly, I've said it before. Taxation is theft. It presumes that the government has a higher claim on our property than we do.
This is coming from Reason TV.
Hi, I'm Nick Gillespie with Reason TV, and today we're very happy to be talking with Judge Andrew Napolitano, the host of the great Fox Business show Freedom Watch, as well as the author of the new book, It is Dangerous to Be Right When Your Government is Wrong. Judge Andrew Napolitano, thanks for talking to us.
Pleasure to be here, Nick. It's nice to have the opposite role of what you and I normally have. This time you're the inquisitor.
I am not sure which is more terrifying for me, but I can go with here. You know, a short history of some of the books that you've been turning out over the past few years include Constitutional Chaos. Then you have titles like To a Nation of Sheep, or rather, A Nation of Sheep, to Dred Scott's Revenge. To your current book, It is Dangerous to Be Right When Your Government is Wrong.
Don't forget the Constitution in Exile.
Oh, no, I know that,
as
well as Dred Scott's Revenge. But, I mean, I sense in the arc of your titles more militancy. Do you feel that we're on a downward path irrevocably towards a loss of freedom and liberty?
I think we're on a downward path. I don't think it's irrevocable. And I have to give full credit for the title of this book to Voltaire, who actually suggested it to me one day. Of course, it's 250 years old, and a famous phrase from him, it is dangerous to be right when the government is wrong. Look, in one respect, women have full rights, and African Americans have full rights. It shouldn't be something we are happy about, but when you consider the historic treatment of African Americans and women, it's about time they have those rights. And as much as I love Jefferson, they didn't have them in that era. In that respect, we are a broader, more expansive, freer society. But with respect to the level of regulation by the government, the areas of human behavior utterly and totally dominated by the federal government, much less a state government, the surveillance state, the welfare state, the warfare state, the regulatory state, the administrative state, we are on a downward spiral, and we are losing liberty with every tick of the clock, and unless we get a game changer in the White House and the Congress or on the courts, this spiral will continue.
One of your chapters has to do with the right to own property.
Yes.
If we go back to the Kelo decision, which was, what, 2005?
Right.
That was horrible, the Kelo decision, which basically the Supreme Court said, yeah, a state jurisdiction or a state political body can take whatever they want from a private property owner, immediately to turn it over to another private property owner, as eminent domain abuse, defined. But that also sparked a counter force against eminent domain abuse. So, are we fighting the good fight, or in these cases?
We are fighting the good fight. In fact, just 3 days ago, the good people of the state of Mississippi amended the state's constitution to prohibit any state government in Mississippi from doing what the Supreme Court authorized in Kelo. And of course, the Kelo case only got to the Supreme Court because the state of Connecticut did not have such a prohibition. But as much as I love the Fifth Amendment, which requires that if the government wants life, liberty, or property, it has to engage in due process, which prohibits torture and compelled testimony against oneself, it is the linchpin of big government. Here's why. Jefferson argued, and I believe, that the only moral, valid, lawful exchange of property is one that is truly voluntary. Hamilton wanted at the Constitutional Convention the same powers that the king did, which is the power to take any property, and the king would decide whether or not he owed you anything. They compromised with the Fifth Amendment, which is the government can take what it wants, but it's got to pay you a fair value for it, and the government has to use it for a public use. Jefferson warned that the public use would be whatever the government wanted its friends to have, and that's where we are. And it's because Jefferson's warnings were disregarded that the government can now take anything. So I ask in the book, do we really own anything? Can the government take that infamous leather jacket that you're now wearing? Answer, yes, it can. If it pays you the fair market value.
Yeah, I was going to say it's really not worth very much. So,
because it's yours,
no.
It's worth a fortune.
I was going to say it's even more. It's like a car, Judge. As soon as I walk out of the store with it, at 50% off the bill. Well, you also talk, and I mean, you have a long list basically of all of the, all of our basic rights. The right to speech. There's no question that with, in any number of ways, the government at all levels is constantly trying to restrain and curtail our speech, political expression, things like that. By the same token, technologically, it's clear that we're able to express ourselves more freely and more effectively than ever. We saw this with, things like McCain-Feingold, in the attempt to use campaign finance laws in order to stop political speech. Forget about what the Supreme Court said in Citizens United. I mean, the fact is that people are now able to express themselves more freely. Do you buy that, and is that enough?
No, I don't buy it.
Okay.
2 FBI agents walk into a library in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and one of them has a self-written search warrant under his arm. I know this sounds like a joke. 2 guys walk into a bar, one has a duck under his arm, but it's true. And they serve a self-written, a search warrant, which under the Patriot Act they wrote for themselves and authorized themselves, to the head librarian saying, we want to know what book so-and-so is taking out. And by the way, you can't tell anybody that we were here. The librarian is 86 years old. The FBI agents are in their early 30s. She says, who the hell are you? She hands the search warrant to her 75-year-old assistant. Fast forward 2 years later, they're in court because they talked about it. The latest trend in free speech violations is compelled speech. There's a sub-rosa trend amongst prosecutors now to prosecute people for failing to report crimes that they have witnessed. And I will tell you, under the law, you have no obligation to report anything that you see except treason. There have only been 7 treason prosecutions in 230 years. The same First Amendment, which prohibits the Congress from infringing free speech, prohibits it from compelling speech. So prosecuting someone for not speaking, and then prosecuting someone for speaking truthfully, I got a search warrant from the FBI, what should I do about it, are egregious violations of the First Amendment.
You were talking about we need to get people in the courts, in the White House, and Congress. I mean, is this something that is going to be solved, or these infringements and incursions on our rights? Is that really going to be solved by politics, or because isn't politics the problem?
Politics is the problem, Nick. It's a good question. When George W. Bush was elected in 2000, but put aside the manner of his election, I wrote about that and I was critical of the court. And the Republicans took over the Congress. like a lot of libertarians, I rejoiced because I thought after these years of Bill Clinton, we'll finally get small government. Instead, we got a government that was less faithful to the Constitution than any government since Abraham Lincoln's years, because there's just a Republican version of big government. So when I say a game changer in the White House or the Congress or the courts, I'm talking about somebody like Ron Paul, someone who was utterly, totally, and without exception, faithful to the values of the primacy of the individual. The government must stay within the confines of the Constitution.
Now, let me say something real quick. Ron Paul, I did support Ron Paul. I did promote Ron Paul. I've had Ron Paul on my show a number of times. And the best thing about Ron Paul, they're not really talking about, is that he is a doctor. He is not a professional politician. He is not a lawyer. And so he doesn't belong to that British elite group that masquerades. And remember, all these lawyers go on to become politicians. How many of your politicians are lawyers? That is as bad as having dual citizens in there. They owe their allegiance to the Bar Association, to the country of England, to the city of London, not to you. And they're sitting in that other little citadel of tyranny called Washington, D.C. I have no desire to run for office, but I am more than, if I get a little bit of support, I'm more than happy to expose them, to rake them over the coals, and try to motivate Americans into forming grand juries and lawfully petitioning their counties and their states and their cities to lawfully arrest these politicians that are basically traitors. Now let's see what Judge Napolitano explains liberty for the future. We've only got about 9 minutes left. Liberty for the future. Do we have a future?
America, and welcome to the Glenn Beck program and the network that you are building, The Blaze. Well, the GOP is in disarray, but there is a new knight in shining armor riding to the rescue for the party and the conservative freedom movement. His name? Karl Rove. He has started something called the Conservative Victory Project, a PAC intended to, and I quote, counter other organizations that have helped defeat
Glenn Beck is an idiot. No, I ain't going to do that. But here is Judge Napolitano telling you again a truth here. A nation of sheep. That's what you have become.
Creation of the American Republic, with its written constitution and guarantees of personal natural liberty, is the greatest political accomplishment in the history of the Western world. Unfortunately, almost from the very beginning of the creation of the Republic, those elected to preserve the Constitution began to dismantle it. In virtually every administration, from George Washington to George W. Bush, the government has sought ingenious ways to evade and avoid its obligations under our founding charter. But a little bit of background first. When we were colonists and the king and the parliament wanted to raise money, one of the ways they did it was by the use of the Stamp Act. The Stamp Act required of colonists, not of people in the motherland, that they have on every official piece of paper in their home, every book, every pamphlet, every deed, every mortgage, every lease, even a poster to be nailed to a tree, the king's stamp, which bore an image of the king. Question: how did the king's government know if you had his image on your papers in your house? Answer, Parliament enacted the Writs of Assistance Act, a damnable piece of legislation that allowed British soldiers to write their own search warrants. So a British soldier could show up at your front door and authorize himself in writing to examine the contents of your home, your barn, your property, ostensibly looking for the king's stamps. Of course, if they happen to find rum imported from the islands without a tax stamp on it, or furniture that had been imported from Great Britain, and you couldn't prove the tax was paid on it, the rum and the furniture would be seized and you would be carted away. The Stamp Act and the Writs of Assistance Act were among the last straws. In fact, the Stamp Act was so controversial that Parliament eventually rescinded it in an effort to quell the uproar on this side of the pond, but it didn't work. We wrote a Declaration of Independence. The great Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence with some editing from some of his political enemies, but it stands for the affirmation of the natural rights of human beings, because it says we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among them is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We fought a revolution, we won the revolution, we wrote the Constitution. The whole purpose of the Constitution is to keep the government in check, to divide and diffuse power between the states and the central government, and further divide it and check it within the federal government itself. Much of the planning and the ideas behind the Constitution came from Greek and Latin and Roman, and to a certain extent even British experience. In the summer of 1787, in a swampy area of the city of brotherly love, the Founding Fathers debated, where do our rights come from? Jefferson, who was not there, Madison, who was there, argued that our rights come from our humanity, and our humanity is a gift from God, and that rights like freedom of speech and freedom of the press and freedom of association and freedom of travel and freedom of thought and freedom to develop your personality and the right to privacy are natural human rights that are as natural to us as the fingers on the ends of our hands. That because God is perfectly free, and because we are created in His image and likeness, He imbued in each and every one of us the same natural desires for and right to freedom that He has. Hamilton and Adams, the big government guys, said that's a lot of baloney, because you can't have rights without a government to protect them. You only have the rights that the government lets you have. And our rights, therefore, come from the government. They don't come from our nature. It's clear from reading the document, the Constitution, that it is intended by the language in the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments which were added in the next 3 or 4 years, that it is Jefferson and Madison who carried the day, that the whole purpose of the document is to guarantee that our rights exist. Example, the First Amendment doesn't say the government shall give you freedom of speech. It says Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. This presumes that freedom of speech pre-exists Congress, and it came from somewhere else, from our humanity. But none of this was new. The one thing that was new about the Constitution is the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment, which Justice Brandeis said is the right to be left alone, the greatest right of all the rights in civilized society, the right most valued by human beings. Today we call it the right to privacy. Here's what it means. It means that the government can't come and break down your door in the middle of the night like in the banana republics. It must go to a judge, and it must present to a neutral judge what the Fourth Amendment calls probable cause, a phrase meaning it is more likely than not that in that house where we want to seize that person or that document, there is evidence of a crime. So no matter how guilty is the government's target, the Fourth Amendment puts a neutral judge between the government and the target. No matter who the target is, no matter what the target has done, no matter how guilty is the target, no matter how widespread is the belief in the guilt of the target, no matter how accurate is the belief in the guilt of the target, no matter how much the society fears the target, the government must go through a neutral judge before it can get to that target. Unfortunately, we have allowed the government a monopoly on the use of force in our society. The Fourth Amendment regulates that monopoly.